Okay, guys. Today we're going to look at Section 2 of Unit 1, which is on lab safety and equipment. If you remember, Section 1 was scientific investigation notes, which are separate from these, but we're going to start looking at lab safety and equipment right now. So some of the key safety protocols that you need to know for lab whenever we actually can get back to doing real labs at the school, hopefully one day. Anytime you break any kind of glassware or whatever, you need to let me know immediately. Don't try to pick it up yourself. That also goes for if you spill any chemicals, alert the teacher immediately, let me clean it up. Definitely washing your hands after every lab is very important. You don't want to walk out of the classroom with any kind of chemical residue on your hands. And definitely, that's why this one's in all caps, do not eat or drink anything in the lab ever. And always wear your safety goggles, especially if we're working with fluids, chemical fluids. Or if I tell you to for other labs and stuff as well. But just always side on caution and put them on whether you are aware you need to wear them or not. It's just good to have them. You want to protect your eyes. Do not wear contacts in the lab either. If you have contact lenses on lab days, you definitely want to have your glasses available. Take your contacts out because any fumes or vapors can get up in there and can cause those contacts to fuse to your eyeballs or cause your eyelids. Just bad things can happen, and we want to protect our eyes at all costs. All right, so we have fire extinguishers in the room. Of course, you use fire extinguishers on non-living objects if they're on fire. Please don't squirt a person with the fire extinguisher. We have fire blankets that can be used on, us if we catch on fire. And then also if, you're on fire and you're near the shower, safety shower, you can pull that and the water will extinguish the flames. If you get some kind of chemicals or anything on your skin, if they're not corrosive chemicals, you can just pretty much wash them off at the sink. However, if we're dealing with corrosive chemicals, which you'll know, I'll let you know, and you get it splashed on you, you definitely need to possibly use the safety shower for that as well. Okay. Sorry about that. I think I skipped the slide. There we go. Okay, so additional safety protocols that you'll need to know. Just one of the main important things is anytime we're doing a lab, you need to know what you're doing ahead of time. Don't just, not look at the procedures and try to go through procedures fresh when you're starting the lab. You need to read over those procedures ahead of time so you know what you are doing when you're in that lab. And you need to follow any safety rules that are put forth in the lab and pay attention to your surroundings because you need to know what's going on around you. Okay. If you're using liquid chemicals, you always pour chemicals from a smaller, easier to manage container. Don't try to pour from a huge container into a small container because then you're going to end up spilling stuff. Only mix chemicals that the teacher has given you permission to mix. Don't just start doing your own little experiment by, let me see what will happen if I mix this into this. Don't do that. Bad. Make sure that you put any lid, stopper, or caps back onto chemical bottles when you are done using them. So let's say you have poured one chemical, you've got what you need. So this is the bottle, the storage bottle. Make sure you put the cap back on it when you are done. And then do not pour unused excess chemicals back into the storage bottle. So if you had something left over, dispose of them properly. Do not pour them back into the storage container. Never use your mouth to suction chemicals. That's kind of, don't do that. We have equipment for that. If you're unsure, what to use, always ask, and I'm sure we'll find something that you can use to suction chemicals other than your mouth. Never use a Bunsen burner to heat volatile chemicals that can give off vapors. We have a fume hood for that, which is like the hood that's over your stove that'll suck all the fumes. It also has a glass barrier that can come down. We'll look more at this stuff when we actually get back to school. Hold test tubes away from you and other people when you're heating them because you don't want it to boil out into your face. So, if this is the test tube and this is the opening, you're going to make sure it's pointed away from you and not towards your lab partners either. Okay. Pick up hot glassware with tongs or heat-resistant gloves. We do have some gloves that are kind of like oven mitts that you can use in the laboratory that you can pick up things with. But generally, we'll have tongs that you can pick things, heated things up. And we'll be using thermometers sometimes. Never put the thermometer into the flame. Those thermometers will only heat to a certain temperature, and those Bunsen burner flames can actually heat to a temperature that will exceed the thermometer's capabilities, and the thermometer will actually explode. So needless to say, that's glass going everywhere, so, possibly into your skin. So definitely don't do that. Another really huge rule is don't horseplay in the lab. You're only going to cause accidents, spills, problems. So I usually have a 0 tolerance for that. So if you're ever caught horseplaying, running around, pushing, things like that, then you're out. Okay. Do not wear loose-fitting clothing or flammable fabrics like nylon or big fluffy knitted sweaters in the lab. They can get chemicals on them, like you're dragging your sleeve through something, or God forbid they catch on fire. Those polyester type fabrics will melt to your skin, so that's not good. So just make sure, don't wear like super tight fitting clothing, because you're going to need to be able to move around, but clothing that's going to be close to you and not hanging. If you have a lab coat, which we don't normally, but if you're a science nerd like me, and you have your own lab coat and you want to use it, you can bring it. But we have the lab aprons that you can wear. Make sure your legs are covered. Avoid wearing shorts. You don't want to spill chemicals, down your legs or anything like that. Closed-toed shoes, please, to protect your feet. If you have long hair, you need to pull that back. Remove rings and watches, because you don't want any of that chemical residue to come in contact with those metals, which could cause reactions and stuff. So, plus mess up your jewelry. Wear gloves for reactive or corrosive chemicals. We'll have those supplied for you if needed. Report all accidents immediately, whether it be, chemical splashes or you've cut yourself or whatever. I need to know immediately, and then we'll take appropriate action from there. The eye wash for at least 15 minutes. If it's corrosive chemicals, we'll definitely have to get you to, medical help as soon as possible, but you definitely need to be rinsing those eyes for at least 15 minutes or longer. If you get corrosive chemicals splashing on your skin, or you catch on fire, God forbid, safety shower is there for that. For smaller fires, like container fires, let's say you have a beaker and whatever you have that you're heating in it catches on fire. Just like in a kitchen, you can cover it with a lid to extinguish the flame. For larger fires that we can't contain with like a fire extinguisher or whatever, you need to evacuate the building immediately. We'll pull the fire alarm and just get everyone out safely. Found this picture. This is kind of heating her test tube, and you can see she's got the test tube pointed away from her. She is attempting to smell the odor that's giving off, and of course she's not smelling it directly. You should not do that. She is wafting. You remember from middle school, you should have gone over this, where you're trying to pull the smell into your nose instead of putting the container directly under your nose. The other picture, of course, is showing a couple of dodo birds, doing what they shouldn't do. One has got the test tube pointed directly to his face over the flame, and the other one is his buddy that's just putting the vapors. You think, okay, that's common sense, but you always have kids that have to do. You also have adults that would do stuff like that. So, okay, so when we're in the lab, we're going to be using chemicals. And those chemicals, can cause issues if, you drink them, ingest them, get them in your eyes, on your skin, things like that. So for every chemical that we use, we have they call them safety data sheets, or SDSs for short. They used to be called material safety data sheets, or MSDS sheets. But they've shortened that a little bit now, but they're the same thing. And they provide detailed information on how to handle the chemicals, how to store the chemicals safely, any emergency procedures that need to be taken, how you can transport them safely, and then how you dispose of them safely. Okay, so by law, you have to have these safety data sheets in a location that, like at the school, for example, whoever's using the chemicals can get to very easily. Like we at the nurse's office, we have a complete set of safety data sheets. So in case someone has to go to the clinic due to exposure to a chemical, she has them. In our science department office, we have this really huge, this is just A through L. I didn't bring both books, but this is a really big binder. As you can see, it's got pretty much every chemical in existence and a safety data sheet for each one. And they are generally set up about the same way. The one I have displayed here, it's a little more colorful than some of the ones I've seen, but they're all divided up into sections. It gives you the name of the product near the top, and then it gives you like hazard conditions. With sometimes they have a colorful chart for that. Tells you what it's made out of, the composition, and then they go into like first aid measures, firefighting measures. If it's been accidentally released into the environment, how you should store it, how you should handle it, and then it just goes into a whole bunch of different safety things that you can use for this chemical to make sure no one gets hurt and it doesn't mess up the environment or anything. Even down to, can you pour this down the drain? Well, yes, that's safe to pour down the drain, or no, it's not safe to pour down the drain. Okay. So there are different systems for displaying information. Sometimes you'll see, like I said, the colorful charts like this. You can see health hazard. It's a 0 through 4. 0 being normal, won't hurt you at all the way up to 4, which is deadly. You have fire hazard one there. Again, this is 0 to 4 scale. Tells you that it will not burn versus, will burn up to a certain, temperature. Reactivity, is it very reactive? Like 0 is stable, unstable if heated for number 1. And you can read as you go down, it kind of may detonate very easily as a 4. And you've got other information on here, whether it's, got radiation, whether you should use water around it. For example, sodium, you should not expose to water at all because it can be explosive. Other symbols you might see, things like this, which will tell you what's harmful, or if it's got compressed gas, which could explode easily, whether it's a health hazard, whether it's corrosive. We were talking about corrosive chemicals earlier. So if you get some, like certain chemicals on your hands, it could, eat away at your skin. So just, keep in mind and pay special attention to any of these safety items that you might see in a lab or on a chemical bottle. So you just have to, again, know what you're using, read your procedures, read your safety stuff, listen to the teacher because she'll tell you before you get started on a lab what you need to watch out for. Just know what you're doing and pay attention because the chemistry laboratory can be dangerous if you don't follow your safety rules. Okay, so there are some lab equipment pieces that you need to know. I have recorded a separate video for that on the lab equipment where I'll walk you through each piece and what it does. And then I also created a PDF document that has pictures and the functions of each of those pieces. Now, I included some of the images of the pieces in this PowerPoint, but the details and stuff, you need to really go and watch that other lecture on the lab equipment. It's like right at 5 minutes, it's not very long. And then you'll have the PDF that you can download for your notes. But basically, there are certain pieces of equipment that you have to know. Some of them you already know, like you got your beaker here, your Erlenmeyer flask in the middle, several graduated cylinders there on the right side. Most people know your test tube rack, test tube holder or clamp. This is showing a variation of the different ring stands and clamps that you can use to hold, your glassware and stuff up off the lab counter. You can put the Bunsen burner under it to heat it. Kind of gives you how to set it up. Here's another picture showing how the Bunsen burner could be used to heat a solution in a beaker. So some other pieces, it's called a crucible with a lid is the first picture. You got the evaporating dish is the middle picture. The watch glass is the last picture. And then you got a rinsing bottle, and then most people call those eyedroppers or droppers. You'll see them called dropping pipettes, and they're all the same thing. But again, watch the other video, look at the other PDF with lab equipment, and you should know so you can get the details on what each one of those pieces of equipment is used for. Okay, that's the end of this part of our notes. If you have questions, you know where you can find me.